I knew in my heart, I knew in my mind, in the whole nine yards, this isn't a man.
And then this thing walks across the road, takes a turn towards us, and then leaps over a guardrail.
Went to look forward, and there was a big black thing, is all I can call it.
Welcome to Squatch D TV, exploring the Bigfoot mystery each week with your hosts, veteran researcher, author, and TV personality, the Squatch detective, Steve Kulls, and from the Bigfoot Research Project of Kentucky, Chris Bennett. Sit back and buckle up as we bring you guests from around North America discussing the Bigfoot phenomena, but not without a few laughs, too. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch D TV for today's date, January 24th, 2021. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch detective, Steve Kulls. Down there, the bald guy, that's Mr. Chris Bennett. And
Steve,
Chris, pass it right down. Pass it right down. And
right here,
right down there, we have our guest tonight, Mr. Lyle Blackburn. Good to see him. And folks, we got a great show for you tonight. And Chris has paid me money not to put a Bernie meme up. So I'm not going to put a Bernie meme up. So, although there's been tons of them, including one that has me in it, which is kind of funny. Yeah, believe it or not, Chris, somebody redid a meme with me sitting in the chair with the mittens on and Bernie standing next to me saying, "Excuse me, sir, I believe you're in my chair."
Oh, you guys, these memes, man, 5 million memes.
Well, if it keeps us smiling, then it's good business.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's do the roll call. Let's say hi to the folks. Of course, who do you think's first in chat today?
Oh, let's see. Got to be B.
It's B. Hello, B. Good to see you.
Hi, B.
Dave Winter. Hello. Patrick Cassidy. Good to see you. John Swan. Hey, good to see you. Mike. Good to see you. Quick Witty's in town.
Quick Witty.
Walt's in town.
Hey, Walt.
And is Little. I wonder if Little Walt's there. Terry. Hello, Terry.
Little Walt's there somewhere. I mean, he's probably listening on his mom's phone. Probably.
We got Kerry Carlson, aka Bigfoot Mountain. Hello to you. Glad to see you in chat.
Hey,
Kerry. We got Bob Lemley, Rod Dupree. Everybody's floating in slowly but surely.
Rod, yeah, welcome.
Except Shirley. Shirley's staying home for the night, I believe. But so
Shirley, you must be kidding me. I'm not kidding you.
I'm sorry. I don't get around and stop calling me Shirley.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, okay.
Leslie Nielsen, the king, man. He was great.
So what about, and you just give them a little, see, Lyle, this crowd here, you just give them a little bit, and you're new to this. So if you want to see the comments, you just click on the comment tab over there, and then you can see.
Yeah, I was checking it out here.
cool. It's really a fun. It's really a fun platform. It's probably one of the best I've seen. And hello to Sherry.
Hey, Sherry.
The boss is out there. I got to be careful. So anywho, let's jump right into this. Besides, the only news event that really is popping up a lot in a lot of places today, or over the last few days, is the Oklahoma Bigfoot hunting license thing going on, and I think we'll get more into that next week because I'm working on a guest. So, that okay with you, Mr. Bennett?
Only thing I was wondering, is that going to be a real thing? Or is it like a fake thing? We're going to talk about it next week.
Well, the congressman that's bringing it up even said that he hopes to increase tourism.
Yes. Bigfoot dollars. Yeah.
Oklahoma has really rolled out the Bigfoot stuff. I mean, every time I go up there, and it's fairly frequent, man, there's just more and more. You see the cutouts, stores, gas stations. I mean, it's you wouldn't think Oklahoma, so much Bigfoot, but man, it's huge. So this doesn't surprise me that they've sort of backed that up with this so-called legislation or whatever.
And Uncle Artie is in town. Hello, Uncle Artie. Welcome.
Artie.
And let me just throw that there. If you're new to the show, thank you for subscribing. If you haven't hit that notification bell, throw us a thumbs up, hit the notification bell.
Smash that bell. Come on.
And welcome to all the newcomers. I know we've had like a bunch of newcomers, new subscriptions over the last, just 36, 48 hours. So welcome all. And Emin Chris is in.
Welcome, Emin Chris.
And of course, his greetings, mortals.
Mortals.
So I think Lyle is. I don't think there's any introduction necessary here because our audience is up on all these documentaries and stuff. We got a really great audience, and if anybody doesn't understand, just throw a question out in chat, and we'll get to it. There's one. Bob Lemley said, I thought they called them wood apes in Oklahoma. So I heard them called that before.
Well, but because the so-called Area X, which the North American Wood Ape Conservancy has kind of redefined their objective to search for wood apes as sort of a alternative term to Bigfoot. So yeah, that's kind of comes out of that research in Oklahoma. So yeah, he's correct.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Something I didn't know.
Trivia.
Yep. Trivia. Okay, so where were we? Okay. I just wanted to clear that one up. So anyway, Lyle, tell us, what inspired you to get into the Fouke Monster and Boggy Creek, and can you give people the Reader's Digest version of the big events that made Charles Pierce go down there?
Yeah. So, when I was young, as far back as I can remember, I got a book and it had some stories about Bigfoot, Yeti, Loch Ness Monster and stuff. And I was really intrigued by those. And that kind of turned me on to cryptozoology subjects. And I remember seeing the Patterson-Gimlin film. I guess it was on TV, the old show In Search Of. And I was also lucky enough to go to the drive-in with my parents and see the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek. That movie came out in '72, but it ran for many years through the drive-in and theater circuit and later on TV in the 1970s. And that dramatized sightings of a Bigfoot-like creature in a little town called Fouke, Arkansas, which is in the lower west corner, very close to Texas. And I grew up near Fort Worth, Texas, so it was about 3 hours from where I lived. That movie, it just registered with me in such a way that I was captivated by that really the rest of my life. I identified with the small town. I grew up hunting and camping with my father, and we often went through those kind of creepy small towns, and then just my love of Bigfoot subjects, it just really was a cool thing. Now, the origin of the Fouke Monster or Boggy Creek Monster story started in, it dates back many, many years, but essentially its public fame started in May of 1971, in which a family that moved to Fouke, Arkansas, was renting a house, experienced some spooky things happening. Something was creeping around the house on subsequent evenings, and eventually, a hairy hand came in the window, and then they got glimpses of this huge upright thing covered with hair. They shot at it. They chased it. There was a lot of events going on that made the newspaper when one of these family members, Bobby Ford, apparently tangled with the creature while they were out chasing it, and he ended up in the Texarkana hospital. And that came to the attention, obviously, of some news guys who ran it in the newspaper, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. As the subsequent weeks went on, other people reported seeing this upright ape-like thing running across the road. In many instances, it was seen near this small creek that runs around Fouke called Boggy Creek, and that's obviously where the association came from. The newspaper dubbed it the Fouke Monster. As these stories started coming out, some of the old-timers who lived in that general area, which is a very kind of a swampy hardwood habitat part of the Red River Basin, and heavily wooded, very rugged and remote. The old timers that lived along the Sulphur River said, well, hey, this isn't the first time reports of this creature, have surfaced. We've had sightings that date back in the 60s. There was a lot of sightings, and they dated back to the 40s, and I've since dated them back all the way to about 1908. But those stories started coming out. It sort of filled out the story. And as these ran in the Texarkana Gazette newspaper, a would-be filmmaker named Charles B. Pierce saw that and thought, man, this would make a great documentary or movie or whatever. And he ended up borrowing some money, getting a camera, and going down there and starting to shoot a documentary, which he first called Tracking the Fouke Monster. That eventually morphed into more of a docudrama film, sort of a horror film meets Bigfoot film, which he filmed in 1971 and into 72. And eventually it saw a very independent local release under the title The Legend of Boggy Creek. After the lines around the block to see this movie, it was picked up by Halco International and then distributed throughout theaters in North America in 1973, and that's kind of how it just started. And from there, it just sort of became a seminal Bigfoot film, and many of the early researchers saw that film, and guys like Loren Coleman that you'd be familiar with were inspired by that. You talk to old guys in Bigfoot, and everybody knew it and saw it, and it just become a institution, I guess, one of the famous cases.
Yeah, the Legend of Boggy Creek hooked me, and I think I was 5 or 6 when I first saw it. So it was like,
and something you said sprung something up to me, Lyle, too. That film really made the rounds, because I remember we had a drive-in here locally. It was called Twin City Drive-In, and of course it's long gone now. But I remember that when that movie first came out in the early 70s, it was showing there, and then maybe a year later, wham, it was on there. It was on again. They just I don't know, they keep re-releasing it or what, but it was at the same drive-in theater twice that I know of.
Yeah, it was so popular. Yeah, it just sort of made its rounds because, I couldn't have seen it in 72. I was too young. I wouldn't remember. So, yeah, it must have played, everywhere.
I mean, I saw it on HBO. When HBO was, that's when we had the cord that went to the box with the old buttons. Yeah. And I remember I watched it with my father. I was like 5 or 6. That was a bad move. I was scared for like weeks. Because the opening scene, there's a little kid my age running through the thing, and you hear, oh.
Well, I was a little kid. I was monster age at that time. I loved monsters, and I wanted to go to the drive-in to see this, but my dad worked and my mom worked a job, and they just weren't the kind of people that had a family night out at the drive-in. Okay, they were like really down to earth, hardworking folks, and that's something we just didn't do. But about 3 or 4 years after it came out, it finally was released on television, and I got to watch it on television. And of course, I was still in the Monster Age. I loved it. That was a great movie.
Yeah, it just, man, it's, one of my favorite films. I love, you can probably see behind me, I love horror movies.
Yeah. And if any of our listeners has got the Amazon Prime or anything like that, you can go over to Amazon.
And plug.
No, I'm telling you. Type in Lyle's name, Lyle Blackburn. Type in, you're gonna find these books, and there's one in there about the Boggy Creek monster. Oh God, you gotta watch that documentary.
The Boggy Creek case book.
Yes.
And then there is The Beast of Boggy Creek.
Yes.
And Terror in the Skies, Sinister Swamps, the Bishopville Monster. Oh, I want to talk about that.
And like I told, I confessed.
Beyond Boggy
I confessed it's been about over a year since I'd seen that, but I remember it well. It was very good.
Yeah,
Lyle does a good job. He's a good presenter. He's also a good writer.
Yeah, we did, because my initial book, The Beast of Boggy Creek, where I went and investigated the whole backstory and history of the legend of Boggy Creek as well as the modern sightings. That book is called The Beast of Boggy Creek and came out in 2012, and that's what kind of launched me into this and subsequent TV appearances. And then I wrote a book called Beyond Boggy Creek that talks about Bigfoot in the Deep South. That came out in 2014. The Boggy Creek case book is new. It came out this year. And then I did a movie with Small Town Monsters, which is
good old Seth. Yep.
Right. The Boggy Creek Monster, which is
Seth
the documentary.
Yeah.
And so I was in that, narrated it, and our combination and teamwork worked so well that I went on to narrate it's been 4 or 5 more of the Small Town Monsters films that I've narrated or, co-produced or some such capacity. So it's been great. And a lot of that kind of, springboarded off the Beast of Boggy Creek book.
Yes. Yep. And I will be seen on the trail of Bigfoot Part 2. So
they've got a lot of stuff on Amazon Prime if you watch Amazon. But if you type in Lyle's name or Seth Breedlove's name, you're going to come up with some good stuff. And some of the stuff they got over there is like some of the new Bigfoot stuff that's been released on Amazon, not by these guys, but
and I say this too: support your authors, because the pandemic has really hurt, like going to shows and being able to sell books. Yeah. So if you as people, especially that have so many books, they want to make money on it. It's true. I want to make money on my book, put it back in my research. So it hurts. It really hurts not being able to do these shows a lot of times. So folks, go over to Amazon, Google or just search for Lyle Blackburn. He's got a lot of great stuff out there.
Yep.
So, anyway, where were we now? Let's talk about, there's some questions that popped up here. I'll get to some of these questions while we're on a, we'll say hello to, wow. This thing is moving
Bob's
so
comment.
fast. Huh?
I like Bob's comment. It said, I've seen the Legend of Boggy Creek at the drive-in. Double feature. The Legend of Boggy Creek and Godzilla meets Mothra. That would have been an awesome double feature, dude. That would have been awesome.
So one of the questions that came on, I believe it was Ham and Chris that asked, what's your thoughts on the Patterson Gimlin film?
My thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, they're doing. We got a tough audience here.
Right off the bat, swinging. Well, ultimately, it's like a lot of the evidence. There's no way I can completely say it is a Bigfoot, and I can't say it's not. There's just not enough, quality in that film, and not enough that we can use to ultimately prove it. So, it's like anything else. I think it's very probable that's an actual Bigfoot. And, I've talked to Bob Gimlin at length, and so, have some personal insight into it and not just having viewed the film. So I feel strongly that if it is any kind of a hoax, Bob would have had to been a victim of the hoax himself, because he just, his story has remained solid as far as that goes. So I feel certainly personally that leans toward it being a true Bigfoot. Just standing back, being objective. Again, you can see pros and cons that everybody points out in the film and all of that. So I try to remain very balanced and don't put my emotions into it and just say it's very highly possible that is, but ultimately, I can't say I can prove that at all.
That's the thing, Lyle. I mean, a lot of people got to understand, unless you were there, you can have an opinion. Well, and I've got opinions. This part looks good about it. This part doesn't look so good, So, but in the end, unless you were there, you don't really know.
And just so you know, Walt, our good friend Walt, came in with a comment that Lyle did an awesome job when he narrated the Boggy Creek Monster, and that musical score set the tone for the movie.
Thank you.
And of course, we want to say hi to Earl. Hello, Earl. Welcome.
Welcome, Earl. Mississippi. All right. Love Mississippi.
And we got Cheryl in here. Good
Welcome,
to see you, Cheryl and Terry. Let's say hi to the folks. And Peter Parker's in the house too, I think. All right. So we got a couple of Parkers. We got David Parker and Peter Parker. And I think David had a question. And I'm trying to. Oh, yes, he did. What is the actual size of the Falk monster?
The reports vary. I mean, on average, I would say 7 foot is the description. But I mean, I had a lady that saw what I would believe is a juvenile creature at 10:30 a.m. in the morning in clear daylight, and she said it was about 5 feet tall. Obviously, if these are real creatures and there would presumably be a population, they would be of various heights depending on the individual. So that I would say, though, I don't get reports of them being there's Ron.
Sorry, Ron. Hi, Ron.
You don't get reports of people 8 or 9 feet like you do get in some other Bigfoot sightings. So I would say 7 foot max, but in the zone of 6 to 7 feet tall. Hi, Ron.
Yeah. Ron and I will be doing an expedition in Kentucky in April. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, Diane came popping in too.
Welcome, Diane.
You usually know that her husband pops in, and then this other character by the name of Charlie comes in. So,
well, Lyle, there was something else too that was really kind of weird about the prints they found in the bean field. I can't think of the guy's farm, but anyway, there were 3-toed. And does that seem to be predominant, or is that just like a one-off thing? The 3-toed tracks.
The tracks that were allegedly seen and found there in the summer of 1971 were 3-toed. That when I talk about the Ford incident where they moved in and they were at the house, and the law constable that investigated that mentioned that he saw some prints up near the house that appeared to have 3 toes. And that was just a mention. There was no picture of it. Right. Then that was in May. And then in June, they discovered a long line of tracks through a freshly plowed bean field near Boggy Creek on some land owned by this guy named Willie Smith. Those were, there was track after track, and you could see very well that they were 3-toed tracks. They were sort of a long human sort of a track, like kind of a Bigfoot track, but it was very narrow and had only 3 toes with what appeared to be sort of maybe a 4th toe that wasn't registering as well, but the 3 main toes. Following that, there was reports of tracks being found with 4 toes. And then in recent times, there's been several tracks found that have 5 toes. So, I mean, it's again like any other Bigfoot puzzle where you've got, it's hard enough to say if they were all consistent, do we say that's tracks of the creature? But now when you have different toes, and I know people say, well, inbreeding, and there's, he could have lost it to an alligator or whatever. But these toes through the bean field were fairly, they didn't look like a deformed foot, and they were fairly defined. So to me, that was either tracks of the creature and it has 3 toes, or it was some sort of a hoax. And theories and rumors, and I've spent years up there. I've been to the bean field and know all those folks, and have interviewed some who were literally there and cast tracks, and then people who naysay it. So you just always have 2 sides of the coin.
That's the thing. The 3-toed tracks, man, that really fueled a lot of speculation and a lot of talk. And I don't know. I mean, it could be a million different things that could cause that. It could be the thing lost 2 toes somehow on each foot, or it could be the inbreeding thing,
Yeah.
But you talk about I remember some, let's see, it was some on the Bigfoot forums. They had a lot of interest and talk about that.
So
about the theories about the 3 toes.
We're gonna get to your question towards the end, just because I think it is a little bit off topic where we're going today, but we will get to that. Quick Witty has a question, but I want to go to OT since we're talking about this. He says, "Were there claws present?" I'm kind of stumped as what animal has 3 toes for. I could think of a dog, but if we have an arch, then stumped. But I'll say this: I know from experience that a Sasquatch print generally does not have an arch, because they have the mid-tarsus break.
See if I can show you that photo, right? I have one of my books here. No, it didn't have claws. It definitely didn't have claws. So that, and they did make casts of it, and the casts are rather rough. The best, and I don't know if you can even tell from this, but
we can do a little maneuvering here. Oh, hang on. All right, there we go.
Do I have it in the pictures?
Yeah, you do. I'm trying to get it so that we can actually.
Steve's going to make the photo big here in a minute, maybe.
There we go. That's about as big as I put up there. Okay.
Okay.
So you can kind of see it there. That's the best is a photo from the Texarkana Gazette newspaper. So that is the most clear to me. And I've seen the cast of it, but you can see how long and narrow it is, which for some animal that stands 7 foot tall in stature, it's hard to think that it would have such a narrow foot. But the whole 3-toe thing is really propagated through the whole southern Bigfoot lore, because I get that question all the time. So do they have 3 toes down there? Well, there's been far more 5-toed prints found. It's just that the legend of Boggy Creek was so much more famous, and it was featured, a whole scene in the movie that 3-toed thing sticks. But I think it's almost the exception in a footprint rather than the norm.
and Quick Witty, and I think he's kind of buffing us here, Chris. He says, what does Lyle think is the best evidence besides the Yowie photo?
That Australian Yowie that visited Falk? I'm not sure.
Oh man.
It's a mixture of everything. I mean, there's several pretty good track castings out of there, but those, who's to say what made them, so that's about the best evidence you got. There's really I've seen photos of the Falk monster. People have shown me alleged photos, but I didn't think they were legit. And then I've heard the old rumors, and I'm sure Steve and Chris, you've heard this stuff where, man, okay, I saw the picture. It came from a guy's game camera, and I'm trying to get the guys to blah, blah. It's like 3rd generation.
Always.
Rumors, but I've never seen a good photo that I believe is the Falk monster. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody hears that everywhere. I've heard that in New York too. Well, I got a friend who works up on the border that has a game camera picture that's really incredible. So get it to me, and then crickets.
Right. Let me see it, and don't conjecture. Just let me see it, and then we'll go from there. And you never hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Bob's got a good question there, or observation. Said, I noticed most 3 toes are by water. Makes me wonder if maybe they're webbed.
Yeah.
I didn't see any evidence of that in the tracks.
Yeah, there's no webbing. The closest to a 3-toed web kind of a print is the rather dubious Honey Island swamp monster track from Louisiana, but definitely in the 3-toed tracks. And I I have seen a track in Falk. The best one I had found was in a puddle of water. It actually appeared to have 3 toes, and definitely did not have any kind of webbing and anything like that. But you're right. A lot of these 3-toed tracks kind of correspond to southern places where there's swamps and bottomlands and certainly a lot of water. He always follows the creeks, as they say in the movie.
So yeah. I have a really interesting tale about the Honey Island swamp monster. So I spent some time down there. I spent probably about 3 weeks down there. And we had gotten to know this one particular guy who'd been there for, all his life. And he had his own little island, as many people do in the swamp. They have their own little island and his little compound on the island. And one day he said, listen, I'm going to sit down and tell you what the true deal is with the Honey Island swamp monster. He says, up north where people were seeing these Bigfoot type creatures, they were also running stills, and there was some other stuff going on there too. So what happened is those tracks were created down in the south end of the swamp to bring the hunters that way instead of where the sightings really were occurring. Kind of made sense to me.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, that's that same kind of, you hear those same exact kind of rumors in Falk and other places where the moonshiners had created the monster to either divert attention from the stills or to scare people away, which I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like these old timers are convincing. It's hard to say, but to me, it almost doesn't make sense. Like, why would they even think to make a monster? It's like, that's the last thing. Yeah. In fact, they were just shooting the feds. I mean, not going to the trouble of making a monster, but it's like the circus train rumors and other things where you see these cases have these sort of same theories that revolve around them. Very similar. Who knows?
Yeah. It's like, well, that may be, that may not be. So, somebody asked about, what do you think shows like Finding Bigfoot and Mountain Monsters, what kind of impact have they had on people and their view of, Sasquatch or our research?
Well, I think it's a double-sided sword. I mean, people put those shows down, and as they certainly don't represent real Bigfoot research. I mean, it's a representation, but not actual. But that's not what TV's about. They need some kind of entertainment. I think the good thing about it is, and I've noticed that since Finding Bigfoot came out, and I've been on the show twice, I know the guys, know the crew. Yep. Since it came out, people are a lot more forthcoming in sharing their sightings, because that was so huge, and people realize that it's not just crazy, so-called crazy people who see Bigfoot and other strange stuff. And so I've, and as the years have gone on, it's much easier to get people to talk about it than it was before that.
Yep.
More than a decade or 15 years ago, people were very reluctant a lot of times to talk. So I think that has helped, get some reports that we would have never had before. And certainly things like mountain monsters is a bit of a problem because it's fictional. It's fake. It's a fun show, but on the other hand, I've seen kids get interested in cryptozoology because of it. I've been at the Mothman Festival or whatever, and those guys are out there, and kids are like, "Oh man, it's so cool." So, they got to get into it some way. So I think those shows are good for that, but we just have to watch out not to believe everything. Yep. Those shows shouldn't be a substitute for books and scholarly research and watching and listening to your show. Those are where you're going to get the real data.
Those guys are so cool with kids. They go out of their way to take care of kids.
Yeah.
And just to give an example, I know a lot of people come down on them because, well, it's a satirical show. But they did a charity auction at the PA Bigfoot conference, a camping adventure a couple of years ago. And Wild Bill was bidding against this kid who really wanted this rucksack. And Wild Bill won it. He went up a lot of money on it. And then he got the backpack. He turned around and he gave it to the kid. And, I mean, here you go. I mean, that's the type of, guys they are. They really care about kids, and they're good-hearted. So,
yeah.
So Godzilla 2000, who also said thank you. It's been a while since he fought Mothra. Said, could the three-toed track be deformed, or the foot is deformed?
It's certainly possible, but it really didn't look like a deformed foot. It was very uniform and, regular, rather than something that looked like it was ill-formed.
Like the Bossberg print. Yeah.
Like the Bossberg, yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to say either way. I mean, I've talked to a lot of folks down there. A lot of them lean towards the dubious reputation of Willie Smith himself, and I'm personally not convinced that one particular track was even legit. I know the incidents and the sightings and some of the other tracks are totally legit. That's the one incident that I find hardest to, sign off as legit evidence.
Well,
and it's fortunately one of the most famous.
Well, they don't have, do they have, let me start this another way. Do they have alligators in the Fouke, Arkansas area? Because I'm not sure.
Yes. Yeah, they're all over the Sulphur River and in the Mercer Bayou down there's lots of them.
Well,
But I mean, I've come up on alligators. I've seen their prints on the edge of the water. They just don't look anything like that three-toed track.
Yeah. The one you showed the picture of. I mean,
literally,
I couldn't see really good. I've seen it before, but I think it would be evidence. There's evidence of some sort of break in the middle too of the foot, but I'm not certain.
So,
but it looks like there's a mound there, and that could be from push off too.
Now,
but
David Parker said earlier that it kind of looks like an overstep to him. But Ron Bowles put something out, and truthfully, when I was in Honey Island Swamp, I saw tracks very similar to what Ron is describing, and it's a blue heron track. Mm-hmm. And it can give that appearance of looking like a three-toed, print. And so I don't know. I guess you would have to look to see. I mean, do they walk? I mean, you have to look at kind of their stride. I think the stride would give it away if there was a series of tracks, because you would expect something that's 7 foot tall is going to have that, 40-inch to 48-inch stride, that big step. If you're getting these little three-toe prints and there's one, and 2 feet later there's another one, and 2 feet later there's another one, then you're probably looking at something that's that's not a Bigfoot. So somebody asked as well as, what do you think of the Turtle Man Bigfoot show? I haven't seen it, so I can't tell you.
Oh no!
Sorry,
Turtle Man.
I don't even have TV. I've been on television shows. I've never actually even seen the show.
So, well, you're doing a great job.
Okay, well, thank you. People say, "Yeah, I saw you on some show." I'm like, cool, I don't have cable or anything, so unless somebody shows it to me.
Oh yeah.
I was on Buried Worlds. I was on Strange Evidence. I've never seen the shows.
I remember when I was in grade school, Lyle, our teachers gave us a test and said, okay, I want you to complete this jingle. And then, she would say some stuff that was like on a commercial. I'd like to sing the world a song, and they were in perfect harmony. Okay, everybody got them all.
At
the end, she said, okay, you guys, you watch too much TV. Everybody got them.
Oh my goodness, I was talking with my girlfriend about that, just a few days ago, about the jingles and old commercials and stuff like that. So there's another question too somewhere in here. Anyway, I'll get to it. I'll get to it eventually. It'll pop in my head.
Drink Ski. Oh God, we're not sponsored by them, but like to be.
Oh, kind of like Snapple, Diet Peach Snapple, Chris. But all right, there was some comments on Expedition Bigfoot. We'll pass on that for tonight. So, and by the way, this is not Siskel and Ebert. We don't.
No. No.
No, you're gonna sit there.
Well, hey man, because I'm fat and it's been cold, and I've been sitting inside watching TV. I watch a lot of stuff online, and some of the
you're Ebert and I'm Siskel. Is that what you're trying to do?
No. I'll just say that stuff like mountain monsters. Oh, it's a great entertainment, but there's a difference between entertainment and education. And Lyle does education and documentaries, and it's good.
Would a crane print be smaller than a Bigfoot print? Depends on the size of the crane. I've seen some of they have a pretty wide, spread on them. Now, while we're on the subject of three-toed tracks and stuff like that, I really want to talk to you about Bishopville.
Yeah.
Because I was down there too. I was down there when the Rawsons had their truck eaten up.
All right. Yeah.
I still have a piece of their van somewhere in my collection over here. So I got to take a piece of it home. But it was very clear to me when the Rawsons
that was the New York coming out, and Steve, he stole a piece of their car and took it home with him. No, just kidding, man. I know.
And the wallet on the dashboard. But so when I looked at it, it was very clear that, there was a couple of things. People were accusing the Rawsons of making it up, that, they did this. And when I looked at the bumper where the bites were, it was very clear to me that they were actually bites, because there was not only a maxilla bite, but there was a mandible bite on the underside of it. They were all round. And that told me automatically it's canine. It's nothing primate. It's nothing. It's not even anything reptilian, because they're round. And as it turned out, well, let me step back. I was trying to figure out, why would it attack the car? I said, let's pop the hood, because the Rawsons didn't have a cat, a little cat plaything. They had a cat hotel there, and they had about 15, 16 cats. So I popped the hood, and I look in one of the header screws, you could see cat hair. There was cat hair. So, okay, there must have been a cat that got scared by a dog, and it ran up in there, and the dog went ape on the car. Yeah. And they had blood on the car from where the dog was biting it and cut its gums. And, the current sheriff, I forget his name, but he tested it and had it tested, and it turned out to be canine blood. So to me, that whole Rawson thing, that's kind of been debunked, but not if you talk to them, because I think they're so bought into that lizard man thing with the festival now and everything like that. But I'll let Lyle continue his dissertation on what he found in Bishopville.
So yeah, following my release of the Beast of Boggy Creek book, I decided to just kind of go out and look at some cases I had, was intrigued by in the past. And one of those was the lizard man case of Bishopville, South Carolina.
Did you know dehydration can
I had no idea.
And so I went out there and spent some time with the retired Sheriff Liston Truesdale, who had been the sheriff during the heyday of the Lizard Man reports, which was in the summer of 1988. Scanned all of the newspaper articles, all of the police files, the witness affidavit reports, the whole deal. And I really wasn't intent on writing a book, but when I was out there, all of a sudden the newspaper came down there and interviewed me, and cryptozoologist here to whatever. And then I saw they released a paper later that said, writer plans to write book on the Bishopville Lizard Man. So I thought, I guess I'm writing a book on it. So anyway, some of the witnesses were passed, and some of them you couldn't find, some of them had been killed. I interviewed what witnesses there were. I looked at the rather hokey three-toed tracks that they had to present, and looked at the evidence in those cars. There was 3 occasions where people reported cars being mauled by animals. And that's actually really what started the whole case, because initially in June of 1988, the sheriff's office got a call from some people that lived near Escapewar Swamp, said their car was torn up by an animal. So in the process of investigating that, and they were puzzled, they're like, this is weird. Some individuals said that, well, maybe it was the lizard man. And so Sheriff Truesdale said, what do you mean lizard man? They said, well, people have been seeing this sort of big brownish or greenish creature thing that walks upright down in Scape-Ore Swamp. And so that's what alerted him initially to this. In my opinion, as I sort of delved through the witness testimony and these cars and all that, was that it was purely coincidental. Just like Steve described in that later car mauling case, where something was up in the engine and a animal, most likely a canine, even a domestic canine gone wild, pit bulls or something, you know, were trying to get at the cats or whatever in the car. And so those things just sort of meshed with sightings of the lizard man. And then people say, well, the lizard man attacked these cars. But truly, they could, in the Rawson's case, they could actually take the saliva and analyze it. In the early ones, they didn't. They just, but they look the same. They're all attacked, and it's surely something that animals would do. They found even footprints on the cars that looked like canids or fox and this sort of thing. So I think you kind of have to separate those car incidents with the actual sightings of the lizard man, which are kind of another thing altogether. In which, you know, I mean, it's even harder to explain away sightings of a upright anthropomorphic reptilian thing than it is Bigfoot. In some, you know, in my book, I even talk about this as a possible theory that it could have simply been a Bigfoot that those people saw if it was wet, if it had a skin condition, missing hair, covered in algae. I mean, you see something like that in the dark, in the moonlight, at night coming after you. You just, you know, you're not thinking Bigfoot. You're thinking, what the hell is it? It's a monster. It's a lizard.
When I met Sheriff and hold on a second. Why are we getting an echo? Uh-oh. Okay, it's gone away. That was weird. When I met Liston Truesdale, he was showing us articles, and one of the articles actually described it like a Sasquatch. It was brownish, covered in hair, and how I think the lizard man got picked up was the description the one witness said was he could see the palm of its hand as it walked away, and he said it looked, you know, almost lizard-like, you know, describing the palm of the hand, and I think that's where the lizard man caught. But I agree. I saw those same tracks that you know, Sheriff Truesdale pulled out of his basement or his garage there to show us, and all the toe splays were the same. Yeah, and you can see dowel marks. You know, so it was pretty bad, and they were all convinced that, you know, hey, this is going on. But
yeah, I think it's kind of like the Falcon Monster case, exactly, where I know for sure in the lizard man case, without giving spoilers, is those tracks were hoaxed and don't have, you know, are discrediting what some of the honest witnesses had described and had a great conviction that they saw something. Somebody went down there, and certainly this happens where kids or whomever wants to add to the, you know, get their name in the paper or get some incident or add to the thing, and they'll go and hoax something. So I think that was just somebody did that trying to fool the sheriff, and then
we're trying to build it,
or whatever they did, and not necessarily connected with the actual sightings. So the lizard man case has a lot of red herrings in it, I think, and certainly a weird and strange story, but some of that is easily ruled out. Those tracks especially.
Yeah. I'm with you, Lyle, man. I believe that they may have had some sightings there, but the car stuff being torn up was probably just adding up 2 and 2 and ended up with 378.
But now the community itself, they used to have a cotton festival, but they felt this was going on. When was I out there?
Cotton festival.
They had a cotton festival
a while back.
Yeah. And then, well, we can't have a cotton festival because that may be racist. So they decided to have a lizard man festival. So every year they have a lizard man festival.
Well, they sort of do, but the lizard man festival, the town doesn't want it at all. The board of directors, in fact, hates it. They hate the whole lizard man thing. It was somebody else who came in and said, you should have a lizard man festival. I'll put it on. And the first one they had me out there. But it was fairly rinky dink. And then the town just, at the last minute, they said you could use whatever facility that they had offered. And then like literally the day before said, no, you can't use it. And just, so all the lizard man festivals that have happened have been from outsiders who tried to get it going, while the town just continually, it's like, dude, search Bishopville. You're going to get a lizard man. Lizard man comes up. You might as well just embrace it. But
yeah. By the way, the whole YouTube neighborhood just went, I don't know, went rocky because Mick is in the house now. And Mick apologizes for being late and said that
welcome, Mick.
He had an accident with an oversized meatloaf.
Oh dear.
So yeah, I thought that was a very big curiosity was the whole bit. But to me, the bones of it is that they're seeing a hairy creature, not a lizard, and you would think that it just made no sense to me. Well, why sometimes these people would be seeing these lizards, a lizard man. Like, that's really a weird mix. It just makes no sense. How would that even come about?
Yeah. And some of those, and you probably may have read the one that you were talking about where they described it as a Sasquatch, but there was, literally in the witness's handwriting. And Sheriff Truesdale was a great guy because he was kind of neutral. He was like, neither believed there was a lizard man, but he didn't disbelieve it. He just followed police procedures. And there was an incident in which a family of 5 saw this thing jump up and right near their car as they drove by Skateboard Swamp. Well, he took all of them and made them write down what they saw independently. And you can read that. So it's not like interviewing a witness, 30 years later. It's like literally within a day. And they say it looked kind of like it had brown hair. It looked like a Sasquatch right there in the witness statement. So it kind of gets lumped in as lizard man because that's what the media kept running, and oftentimes drew it as a sort of Godzilla looking thing. That's not even what people described. So yeah, you're right. It's to me, it's like a weird Bigfoot case.
Yep. One of the weird things that I have in my experience is there's a little town on the very southern end of the county. It's actually very urban for the most part, but as you get a little further north, it becomes a little more rural, especially back in the 80s now. And I find interesting is that they had a woman on one of the streets reported that she saw a Bigfoot. And you could see the officers that took the report were kind of making fun of it. They said, oh yeah, Bigfoot. Yeah, there's no Bigfoot upon arrival. He must have went back to his cave. Now, this did not get publicized until 2 days later when 3 or 4 young children, I forget, I think it was at least 3 young children, like age 12, 10, I think the other one was 11 or so, maybe even 12 as well. They reported seeing a Sasquatch along the more rural area of this town. And to me, it's like, okay, so that sounds kind of far-fetched that this woman's seen it down this way, but she reported it first. I have the police reports. How did the kids know? And then they report. And then you think about it, kids wouldn't necessarily call the police department unless they really saw something. So, it's just like one of those enigmas that, we'll never truly know. But it's very interesting that you have 2 reports within a couple of days of one another in the same general area. And the second one was actually more seriously researched. The sergeant drove up there, took the kids out in the field. They looked around, and I think they found a dead muskrat. And that was the end of the report. So it's like curiosities like that, or when you see those coincidences, that's too much coincidence to be coincidence. It's something.
Yeah, I love those when if I'm researching something, you find something like that where like, well, look, how did this just is too weird of a coincidence. Something was going on. Those are the best.
And the funny thing is, the woman probably could have been a crackpot. They may have known her and said, "Oh, she's a little and she's seeing Bigfoot now. But then all of a sudden these kids see it.
Yeah. It's like, yep.
So, Mr. Wonton is in the house.
Welcome, Charlie. Jerry Springer.
And
got all of the monsters on here today.
We do. Now
covering them all.
You've had some experience with the Mothman, yes?
Yeah. I've been up there several times to Point Pleasant. Been out to the TNT area. Worked on the 2 documentaries with Small Town Monsters about the history of that. So, yeah, certainly.
Seth tells a great story of having the bejesus scared out of him up while doing the Mothman. I forget the exact gist of it, but something scared the hell out of him. It turned out it was a Japanese crew that was with him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that when that came around. That they had asked me to do that, and I couldn't, and he was able to do it. And, yeah, he said it was quite an experience. And I'm sure it was.
Yeah, I did drive through the TNT area once in my life, so I'm happy to say that I made it there.
It's a spooky place. I mean, I went out there and did some night hiking once, and you can just see why people, I don't know, see weird things and strange stuff goes on. It's just got an air of spookiness. I don't know what it is, or maybe I preconceived to think that because of the stories, but it's certainly something. It's like the Boggy Creek area, just something weird about it.
Yeah.
Those bunkers are open, aren't they, in that area?
Yeah, you can go in. That's
a shelter.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a whole weird thing unto itself when you go into those underground bunkers. They're creepy. So you can just walk right in them, most of them.
One of the more interesting things is actually I was in the museum, and I think a guy named Jeff runs it, but he wasn't there that day, and his friend, one of the other people running it, I ended up chatting up with him, and it's this weird conspiracy stuff like the Men in Black and stuff like that also intertwines with that. And this guy said, yeah, I actually a few years ago had a guy I would describe as a man in black come in here and ask a bunch of questions and then leave. I'm going, what? It's just you hear stories. I mean, how do you weight them sometimes, I think.
I think that's one reason it's so popular, because it kind of interweaves the Men in Black, the conspiracy, the UFO, and cryptid all into one case. So it's just highly appealing to a wide range of audience, I think.
Yeah. I mean, even time travel, well, it showed up because it was trying to warn the population about the collapse of the bridge, stuff like that. So, and then all of a sudden you have Mothman being seen, I think, in Chicago previous to some tragedy. And then there was one in, I think, Poland that was seen before some tragedy. It's just like this really weird guy. I wish John Keel was alive because we could pick his brain a little bit better. Just really, and I know the for those who are wondering, the Mothman Prophecy, the movie, I think was heavily dramatized. So you got to take that with a grain of salt what you see on that, but it's based loosely around what actually people were saying.
Yeah, it's a good movie, but it was definitely just kind of using the Mothman as a backdrop or an inspiration to make a good movie. But if you can watch our Mothman of Point Pleasant documentary on Amazon Prime, and it will give you the facts and the witnesses and what really went down in that initial case in the 1960s.
So we have a question from Mick. Lyle, you still host a radio show? If so, can we stream it over the internet? I'm in Canada, a bit out of range for radio signal.
I have never hosted a radio show, so I guess I don't host one anymore.
Mick, where the hell you came up with that question?
I mean, I could, but I just never have found the time. People ask if I'm going to do a podcast, radio show, and it's like, man, so much going on. There's only so much time today.
It's tough to do one, and
I imagine.
To do it consistently. We've taken our breaks over the years because there's just so much time investment into making a nice product or trying to make a nice product. Ron said, let's not forget the black helicopters.
Exactly. Yes. So many angles, so many things, strangeness, high strangeness.
Yeah. And you think about that whole area. I mean, that was a very big military depot, I think, during the World War II. Was it not? It was.
Yeah,
that's why they called it the TNT area, because it was.
Yeah, they were storing munitions there, and they built those bunkers. So if the area was, somebody flew over the area, you would never be able to tell that there was military munitions being stored there. So of course, anytime you add the military into the mix, now you've got more suspicion that, what could it be? Is it, experimentation or superhuman soldiers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it gets really weird, and the Mothman may actually be a product of the chemical dumping into the water.
Well, so, I like those kind of things, and it adds to the mystery, and I'm always interested in mystery. It's not exactly Bigfoot, but I watched Lyle's show on it. But now I remember watching the movie with Richard Gere. I think it was Richard Gere. And man, the movie didn't impress me any. It didn't. But now Lyle's presentation did.
Yeah, we like
facts better.
We like fact stuff. And as a researcher, that's why we're down on, and just to go back full circle, that's why a lot of researchers are so down on shows like Finding Bigfoot and Mountain Monsters and Bigfoot, because they're out for entertainment. They're not out for research. You want research, go to a documentary. So,
yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah, David asked if you ever heard of the Montauk Monster. I'm sure you have.
Yes.
And and of course, Texas being the home of the chupacabra.
Yeah, I get some reports of that. I usually funnel those to my brother Ken Gerhard, because he's more specialized in that. But yeah, that comes up a lot. Or when you're on a show, people ask about the chupacabra, being from Texas. So
now, what do you think is going to bring an end to? You think that any piece of film will ever prove that a Sasquatch exists?
I don't think so.
So either.
You know what I mean? At this point, too much arguments, and there is so much technology that it could be faked if somebody wanted to. So I think ultimately at this point, without a body, you're just simply not going to be able to ultimately convince everyone, or quote unquote mainstream science.
Yeah. That's the thing. And I have hopes that they'll catch DNA from this eDNA stuff now. But once they do, you got to have something to compare it to. Otherwise, they're just going to say, oh, yes, we have unknown DNA.
Well, they'll say unknown primate. I'm sure they'll test it.
Yeah. Well, it could be. It's got a lot of human in it, so it's probably contaminated.
I still think if we get a good eDNA on something, I still think that science may perk up a little bit and go, wait a minute, maybe there is something to this. But,
yeah, if it comes from a reputable source, I think it would, raise some eyebrows and turn some focus on it. Certainly, if it, I think again, it's got to come from a well-documented, reputable source, because I think the problem now is Bigfoot. I mean, even in the 70s, Bigfoot was already sort of a cultural icon, a product. It was games and things, but even more so now, it's just, scientists and most people just going to think, oh boy, here we go. It's just not going to give it the attention or scrutiny that it would deserve, even if it was legitimate, stuff. It would just we'd have to throw a body down and go, look, believe it now.
Yeah, I agree, because if I was to get eDNA and I send it to a good lab and they come back and say, hey, it's this, now what do I do? It's again, there's going to be pushback. They're gonna
Oh God, don't read the chat.
Yeah, I saw some funny ones.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, Mick is. So anyway, it's sad. I agree. Bodies the only evidence which would be accepted. I remember reading an article where legit scientists were studying Bigfoot DNA. I think that may be something you may have read over the years about the Ketchum Project, maybe, and which didn't turn out to be the greatest piece of scientific work. Otherwise, if it was, we'd be talking about crop circles. So, because everybody asks, one of the questions I always get sometimes is, well, what are you going to do when Bigfoot's discovered? Oh, it's off the crop circles. Here we go.
Well, I don't know. I've thought about that, Steve, and I thought it'd probably be time to go check out the Yeti. I don't know if I could breathe there, though. That would be the bad thing. I may have to quit smoking.
The snow.
Bigfoot or Sasquatch, yet he doesn't care. Bad one. You can chat room. You can boo me now.
But hey, there's always the Loch Ness monster.
Been there too. And now, while we're on that, I don't know if you saw that, Lyle, where they have a scientist believing that the Loch Ness monster actually may be a giant turtle. That just came out the last couple of days.
I didn't see that, but I mean, I don't think at this point the Loch Ness monster is a plesiosaur or some thing like that. So if there's a phenomenon, it's being caused by turtles, eels, wave activity, or what have you. I think.
Okay, so here is the actual article. This was coming from a radio station. It says, scientists claim Loch Ness Monster is actually an ancient sea turtle. Scotland's most infamous creature's mystery may have recently been solved, as a scientist described it as some kind of undiscovered sea turtle that has become trapped in Loch Ness. Professor Henry Bowers' research suggested a turtle could have been trapped in the loch when the water levels reduced at the end of the recent ice age. That time period was around 12,000 years ago. U.S. scientists worked at Virginia Polytech Institute and State University doesn't believe Nessie was a type of dinosaur. He thinks that all sightings seem to describe turtle behavior, such as breathing air but living underwater. Bauer is 89 and retired, but his research published in a respectable scientific journal, according to the Daily Record. The publication said creatures in Loch Ness are yet to be discovered and that there could be evidence down there of a large unknown turtle similar to the ones that live in the oceans today. So that is just the basic run on that.
Yeah, the flipper photo from the MIT guy. What was his name? Back from the 60s, 70s.
Yes. I was actually at that site.
Hey, that's that's a good argument for that.
I don't. Lyle, have you ever been to the loch?
No, I haven't.
I have. I did Truth Behind the Loch Ness Monster, and I actually got taken down to the station that they use to relay, and they have these big cords of electrical cable that they were running stuff from. I actually got to go down to that site. It was pretty much untouched. It's really weird. Like there were still chairs in there, and there's a lot of 40 years of whatever, but it was like being in a tomb, almost like, oh, wow.
It's bugging me. What was the guy's name? Daggone.
But then you look at the Lake Champlain monster, where that guy photo what looked like it's very rare you see that. You got to really search for it. But there was one that went under a boat, and they caught the whole thing on video. You see the thing move on, and you can see what looks like a dorsal fin, or not a dorsal fin, but a flipper type of fin. So some of this stuff, really shakes us up about how much we really don't know about stuff. I mean, the loch, I remember being there. The loch is 823 feet deep, very deep, deeper than some parts of the Atlantic Ocean. And you can't see 3 feet in front of you. So anything could be in there. But I do know there's a lot of stuff on that loch because of that area of Scotland gets hit with east winds sometimes and west winds, and it back and forth. It could be 40 degrees one minute, 70 the next. And there's a lot of things in that loch that can be misconstrued as, hey, there's the Loch Ness Monster, because I was sitting there watching it for hours. Between shoots, I'm sitting there just watching. And then there was the Robert Preston photo, which was, a complete farce. I actually debunked it, but again, Hollywood, looking for entertainment, they kind of cut out my debunking, and they put the scientist on the end saying, well, to me, it appears it's a bunch of boats. There appears nothing in that picture there that would be a reflection of some sort. Well, that's funny. How did I recreate it? Because the part that's cut out of that photo to the right of it, here is this house with copper flashing on it. And at a certain time of day, the sun comes up, hits that copper roof, reflects onto the lock, and I snap the picture of it. And look, three slats on that copper roof, 3 humps. There you go. And I recreated it.
Google wins again. Dr. Robert Rhines.
There we are.
Yes, that's it. Rhines.
That was bugging me.
Yeah, I was sitting there trying to think of that too. I was like, but you know, I think ultimately, like, if Sasquatch is proven by whatever means, you're right. Then it almost like gives credibility to other things. I mean, I've looked into, written books on Lizard Man, and in my Sinister Swamps book, it covers a variety of phenomenon and everything. It would just sort of make people go, oh crap, wait a minute. Even if they prove the Loch Ness Monster, it would give credence to, well, what does that say about Sasquatch? What does that say about everything else? People would say, well, maybe this isn't all just crazy, and then I think people would become more interested in the other cryptids, the ones that aren't yet proven. So I think it's good either way. Proven or not.
If a Sasquatch was proven to exist, and in truth, my answer would be, I'm just going to keep on researching because I find that creature fascinating. And I want to know more and I want to learn more. Just because they've proven it's real, I've seen a couple. I don't need really that proof to prove to me it's real. So I'm still going to go out and do my thing and try to get a picture or try to get whatever I can get. So at the end of the day, it's for my own personal enjoyment, not necessarily now to prove to science or give it to the scientists to prove it. So
right, because my objective has never been to prove a Bigfoot. I've never, people are like, what are you out to do? It's like, I just like the subject. I like the stories, and I mean, I kind of specialize in the cases of these famous cases and what's true and all the sightings and the people in the town. But it's never been to prove Bigfoot. It's just that I, like you, it's just I'm interested in it, fascinated in all the aspects of the story. So, heck, they're still studying gorillas. So just even though it may be proven, then there's a lot of research. Like, where's the rest of them? What have they been doing? What's their culture? What's their habits? There's all that stuff to still research aside from just the creature itself.
And speaking of that, about the research on gorillas, there was another article this week about chimpanzees actually maybe using glyphs almost, or some sort of writing. They're leaving symbols on trees, like almost carving something on a tree as a message to other chimpanzees. So if that doesn't show some advancement there, and you got to understand, like I said, I've said it, like chimpanzee DNA is 94.6% human. I think whatever a Sasquatch is going to be a little bit closer than that. Right. Just for the fact of, and that's always been the question that really irritates me is, people saying, well, I know how to hunt these things. You're not a hunter, blah, 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 blah. Really? You're not dealing with an ungulate, a bear, or anything like that. You're dealing with a primate who thinks. So you can take your hunting stuff and throw it out the window because you're dealing something with that's completely above that pay grade. And
right.
So what do we got? We got Charlie Wanton said, I think we should stop trying to prove Bigfoot exists. If he does exist, he's not bothering anybody, and we should give them what they've always wanted, solitude. Let me stop at that a second. Mick's reply was, Charlie, I beg to differ. I just got to know if Sasquatch stole my ex's meatloaf. But that's the running gag. But I tend to disagree with that because Mick and the meatloaf stories, it's great. I really think that, we do need to prove their existence so we can protect them. If they're an endangered, I mean, let's face it, we haven't bothered them in the last 50 years trying to search for them.
Yeah.
And there's ebb and flows, and nobody's killed one per se, or, if they did, we have all these, these stories of people killing them and then they bury them. which is stupid. You see the commonality in that. That may have happened once, but I don't think it's happened like dozens of times, because every so often you get that story. Oh, I shot a Bigfoot like 10 years ago and I buried it, but there's no bones. It can't prove anything.
Yeah.
So I really think that, if we do prove they exist, we can start protecting habitats. You want them to have solitude, then if they become a listed creature, then they will have solitude because the government will mandate it. So
I don't know. I don't think anybody can do too well finding them anyway. I mean, even when you're out there and you've done the research, you put the boots on the ground, you're in a hot area and doing everything right, you still got about as much chance of getting struck by lightning as you do have a sighting. Because I think it's accidental. More than anything, I think it's by chance. It's like when you walk up on one, it's like, ooh.
Another comment is OT. Hello, OT. They said they found seals in the lock. That's not necessarily strange to me, because the lock does have a connector to the North Atlantic. It's called the Caledonian Canal. Yeah. And that was built in the 1700s, basically financed by the British to keep the Scots busy. So, because the Scots were really wanting to war with the Britons, so they started this project to keep them occupied. So every so often you will have creatures from the North Atlantic kind of find their way into the lock, such as salmon and seals and whatever else, maybe.
After the last DNA study came out from the lock, I was hopeful, I'm still hopeful that it will be a very large eel, is what I'm hopeful.
Yeah, the eels could be. So,
things are scary.
Okay, this question comes from Walt. What's Lyle's opinion on what some people say there is a Bigfoot UFO connection?
Well, I get asked that every single time. I really don't understand the connection to UFOs and Bigfoot, but in my opinion, there is no connection. There are cases, and I investigate this in my Momo, Missouri Monster book, where there were UFO sightings that corresponded with some Bigfoot sightings. But these two phenomenons are always going on. There's always Bigfoot sightings and there's always UFO reports. The thing is there's no connection. Just because somebody saw a UFO doesn't mean that the Bigfoot got off of it. And you have little to zero accounts where anybody ever said a Bigfoot got off of a UFO. And you have these things about people saying, well, it's aliens coming here to drop off their pets, and Bigfoot are pets. I'm like, come on, Bigfoot is so terrestrial. The form of Bigfoot is so ape-like, so close to us that how could that be from another planet? It is of the earth, the descriptions themselves, the behavior, where it lives. So I know there's the dimensions and you can go off into the woo stuff, but I just don't see a connection with the two phenomenons. They will overlap, but to me, there's just no reason.
I've always said this, and we recently talked about this actually. I think a week ago or two, I cut a quick video on it on the channel. And I really feel that, even if somebody saw one come out of a UFO or get beamed up by a UFO, we've had cattle mutilations before where people were seeing UFOs over cattle mutilation sites. We never thought for a second that the cattle were aliens, number one. Number two is you would not drop a foreign animal or a foreign being into an area without some sort of protection, because they're not immune to our biology and our bacteria and our parasitic things and fungi and all that stuff. So it makes no sense why an intelligent being would just drop somebody there. Well, maybe they have this super cure-all. Now you're getting into science fiction, and that's what we don't do here. So that's why I agree. There's no connection other than just coincidence.
It's funny because if I speak at a paranormal event, that is the first question that I'm asked every single time. Yeah. I don't know what it is, and I understand it. There's people there who has interest in other subjects, so they want to cross. But I'm like, any sort of reading that's been done on this would easily dispel. If we had a lot of reports where Bigfoots are getting off UFOs, well, then again, we need to put some attention, but there is none. So
Exactly. Okay, so
Squatch Talk's got a good one, Steve.
Charlie wants says, don't disagree with Charlie. I know people in Wuhan.
Lyle, Squatch Talk says, where'd he go? Daggone it. Good question. Should the public know they're out there in the woods?
Yes. Why not? Safety.
I mean, they should. I mean, I think that any one person is going to have their individual belief in whether that's possible or not possible, whether they think there are. So, I mean, you could tell somebody that, but ultimately it's up to their own, cognizance, whether they believe it or not. I don't even try to convince people of anything. I don't even, I just do my thing. And if I strike a conversation with somebody who is interested in the subject, I'll certainly share. But, like I say, Bigfoot 50, humans 0. It's like they're there. They don't care if we know or don't know, I guess.
Mick has a question. Okay, hold on. Before I show that question, you're not going to throw another ringer, right? Did you ever? No. Lyle, in your opinion, what is the best evidence of the existence of Sasquatch and why?
I suppose the best would be in the form of footprints. There's something solid there to analyze, to see. There's, been many cases where we believe there's dermal ridges or things up and above just simply the form of the track. The mid-tarsal break information, a lot of the stuff Meldrum has covered in scientific detail. That to me is the best. I think videos, we kind of always go back to the Patterson-Gimlin film, but, if it hadn't proved itself in 50 years, then we need something better as far as video. But I suppose the best physical thing is the footprints. The hair would be second. And then if we could get some DNA that was reputable, then that would supersede the footprint.
What I always find is the reason, I think the big reason why the Patterson-Gimlin film has stood up all these years is because it was so the story was laid out. It was documented. It's not this this whiz bang video of 10, 12 seconds and a very weak story around it. It was a story. Hey, listen, we went here, we went there, we did this, we did that. Then this happened and that happened. We don't get that with all the other videos, maybe with the exception of, Paul Freeman with the Freeman film. And what are your thoughts on the Freeman film?
Yeah, I'm dubious on those,
Okay.
Again, it's a good, and it's right up there somewhat in the league of Patterson-Gimlin, which is a far leap from all the things you get now with 5 seconds of some nonsense that you can tell as a suit or whatever. But, Freeman's sort of a hard to judge character on some of the questionable things, yet still a lot of leanings towards it could be legit. So I think it's good. And I wish in modern times we had more stuff like that to analyze.
Yeah.
And then what we kind of tend to get now.
Yep. And then there was that I don't know if you've seen the Russian Yeti video with the people driving and the thing running along or trying to, it's off like in the field a little bit to their, I would say maybe their 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that looked interesting as heck. And, I may not agree with, Igor Burtsev's philosophies, but he did interpret what the people were saying. And to me, listening to that, they sounded genuinely like they were in fear or something.
They do. I actually shot a segment of a TV show recently that went over that video. And so I got to see the whole thing and kind of look into it, but it's much longer than a lot of the others. And at times it certainly looks very ape-like, and it looks very much like kind of a Patterson-Gimlin subject. So it's definitely intriguing and heads above the other stuff.
Yeah. Because when we talk about, like you said, there hasn't been, and then all of a sudden, boom, that Yeti video, or the Russian Yeti video, that was long. It wasn't like this 10-second. This was this whole play out, and then the people talked about it too. So you have you have something more than what we normally get which I think is awesome. That's like the first one in modern times and recently that I can remember where you get a longer than a 10-second video. So that is, I can add.
There was one years ago, the Snow Walker video, which I think that was it was determined to be a hoax.
Yes,
but,
that was made by a Fox documentary, I believe.
It was really good. They did a good job.
Yeah, but even though, Chris, the video of it was actually quite short. It wasn't like clips I've seen, and there was really no description. There's another video too, which may be a man walking down there, or it may be not. But there was a Canadian up in I think Banff, in the area. He was up on the mountains. I don't know if Lyle, you've seen it, where this kid was actually a biologist, and he starts filming something that's a couple of miles down because it's so open, and he sees a solitary thing. It looks like you really can't tell if it's wearing anything. It looks just like this dark thing, and it's moving along the ridge. And the guy was like, "Why is this here?" And they're trying yelling at it, and it's not getting any response from it. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah, boy, I've seen a few of the snow ones, but it didn't. I'm not picturing that in my mind. Maybe I haven't. I don't know.
But and the kid turned out to be a biologist. So I always take caution with that too. Is he just trying to spoof all of us? But from their reactions, he did a lot of. He got asked by a lot of questions by reporters, and he said, "No, this is." Now could it be? It could be. It may not be. But he seemed pretty on the level about it. But is it a Bigfoot? You really can't tell. It's too far away.
Yeah. Again, it's just like it's a tease. It's like, man, just not enough there to say either way, and it's cool stuff. But
then there was the not the Marble Mountain. What was the other one where it was kind of silhouetted? And I can't think of that one. That one was put on the BFRO years ago. It was like the Ridge Walker or something video where it's walking along the ridge. So,
yeah. That's Marble Mountain, isn't it?
Marble Mountain. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah.
Remember the Marble Mountain one? And the video was hidden for years. Now you could actually find it freely. OT, you should post these links on more interesting videos. I wish I had them. It's like we never know what's going to pop up in our chat. So Quick Witty. Oh, here comes Quick Witty with another tough question. What do you think about the Stacy Brown thermal?
That was fairly intriguing. I interviewed Stacy about that and saw a presentation he did about it. Obviously, Barrettman did some analyzing of the height and stuff. So, I think it's possible. It's a possible Bigfoot. There's certainly many sightings in Florida, so it's a place where there's a long history of sightings. So it's in the zone. I know people question Stacy's motives and stuff, but I think it's just a legit video. It's just they took the video and then now it's left to conjecture whether that's a Sasquatch or just some dude in a fat running suit or whatever.
Yeah, I like that one.
I like it. I kind of conclude my Beyond Boggy Creek book with that because I kind of go in depth on Skunk Ape at the end there as the Deep South thing, and kind of show that as where we stand with modern technology and the mystery. We have the technology, but it's still it has us trying to solve a puzzle of what it is we're capturing on the images.
I don't think I ever told anybody, really mentioned this on the show, but I saw what I believe could be even considered a skunk ape when I was down in Alabama. Of course, we were very close to the panhandle of Florida. And one of the weird things, I walked out, it was a cow pasture, and they were having some mysterious cows dropping dead for no reason. They didn't understand what was going on. They did find some rather good-looking tracks on the property. Go out, look where the tracks were, and we find the most recently deceased cow. So I flipped it over. It had no marks on the quarter. They like bare, cat will take an animal down at the hind end quarters. You'll see a lot of,
Yeah.
and then it'll go for the throat. Flip it over, and what I see is a broken jaw and the neck, the saddle where the spinal column goes into the neck of the cattle was pulled out. So it looks like something had taken the cow by the bottom jaw and went and snapped its neck, dropping it. Can't tell what was done on the other side of it because that was completely gone. Insects had gotten to it. So that looked very interesting. Well, that night we were going out, and this is why I believe they do emit infrasound, is because I walked out in the field and I automatically got on the radio. I said, I'm getting this really weird feeling as I'm walking out to my left. I just don't know what it is, but I'm getting like really creeped out. I'm wearing complete night vision. So I come back in. They start scanning with a thermal, and they spot one walking from the left to the right in one area of brush to the other area of brush. And finally, when I got a beat on it, I got my night vision down again, and I could see it like take 3 steps and then into the woods. It was like lightning fast. So I go booking out there, and all I can hear is and I was going to go in, but then I realized that nobody else followed me. This thing's breaking cows' necks. I'm a goner if I go in there and get pissed off.
Good luck, Kulls.
I'm a brave guy, but I'm also smart.
You got to be smart. That's interesting. In the area where you had that sighting, one of the best reports I've ever gotten came out of it was in Florida, but it was kind of up there in the Panhandle, towards Alabama. I'm trying to remember the little town, but regardless, there were 2 witnesses in this case, and two sisters had come back from a cruise that docked there on the coast of Florida. And, the car was there, and they had gotten in, they were driving up around noon, full great weather, daylight. And they're in the road is, it's a nice looking road, but it's heavily forested on either side. There's huge trees, and they're driving, and they kind of round a corner. And as they got around the corner, they see this upright figure, maybe, 7 feet tall, walking across the road. It was covered in hair. Their immediate thought was a Bigfoot. It crossed and then just sort of darted into the woods. And they had the wherewithal to turn around because they had kind of rounded the corner. When the thing left, they stopped and turned around. There's no other cars on the road at the time. They turned on their phone video recorder and were kind of trying to see if they could see it. Well, you could hear these 2 women talking as they're driving, trying to say, I think it went in right there. And they're holding the phone. And this is legit. This is completely, no suspicious acting or anything like this. This is just off the cuff, their reaction to what they had seen. And they, of course, didn't see the figure. It was gone by then. But they happened to contact me, and I did an interview personally with both of the witnesses, and very just top of the list credibility, and certainly, a bonus when you have 2 witnesses as opposed to 1. Plus I had the video they shared with me, their reaction of that. And I felt quite solid. There was 2 explanations for that. One was it was a hoax. It was a good one, but which I thought was a strange place to come across the road because it was just after a curve in a very dangerous place. If you're going to purport a hoax or whatever, you would not run across there. You would run across at a better position where you could see the car. If it wasn't that, they absolutely saw what we would refer to as a Bigfoot or a skunk ape, 100%. So good sighting there. One of the best.
And the one I was only maybe 5. It wasn't very big. They were smaller. And a lot of people will, and we got more questions. I'm going to get to them in a second. A lot of people think that because they're different sizes or different weights, even different looks a little bit, that they're different species. And I try to always keep it, drawn in, saying, listen, we're trying to prove that one species exists. Now you're trying to say that there's 3 or 4 different species of them. It doesn't make sense. But what is true in primates is dimorphism. And that's the ability to have different weights, heights, shapes, even facial features to a bit. If you think about it, Asians look different than us, or, Caucasians, and they look different than African Americans, and they look different than, Latinos. And, there are some generic traits to everybody that forms their sizes and shapes, but there's also food and weather that also mixes in with that too. So you end up having, even within the same races, you have dimorphism. So to me, to think that, I mean, using that train of thought, then there would be 4 races of Homo sapiens, or 5. It's just not the case. We're all the same. We just look differently. It's like a dog. It's like looking at the Chihuahua and look at a bull mastiff. You take their DNA is the same, and they all came from the same canid, a wolf. So what happens is genes and whatever, they play a lot of different games. And one of the greatest things I ever saw was this Nova special on dogs. And then they went to this farm in Russia where they have, for the last 70 years, they have been looking at effects of domestication, and they would take the most gentle foxes they could find and breed them. And they would take the nastiest foxes and breed them. And they did this over a period of, 40, 50 years when they started noticing things. The nasty foxes were nasty, even nastier. They were very vicious. But the ones that were kind over time began to get fluffy tails, and their tails started to go upright, or some of them started changing colors. They were having patches of white, just like a domesticated dog would. So, and then some of them would have shorter snouts. It's funny how genetics plays a role in this. And I don't think there's 4 or 5 species. I think this is just genetics over time, depending on where they live. And part of it could be weather. Think about it, folks, especially, who thinks there's different species that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lyle, you can jump in anytime. I think that if you look at size, the weather, you're going to have a smaller creature in warmer weather because it's less mass to soak up or to get heat, on them. Whereas in, colder weather, you're going to get more robust things because you need to keep warmth. And that's just, Darwinism genetics. It's the genetics at work there.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on all that. Yeah, I think it's hard enough to propose that there's one. Certainly, the Pacific Northwest, British Columbia, is such a different environment from Florida that adaptations, just mutations of genes and things, they're just simply going to look different. Could be smaller, could even be more ape-like to deal with the swampy environment, but still, ultimately, it's a Bigfoot.
Yeah. And, I think it's really cool because if you think about the United States itself, it's the only nation in the world that has all types of land. We have rainforest, we have plains, we have tundra, we have mountains, we have, frozen areas, we have areas that are temperate. Although right now, if you're in New York, you're probably saying it's a tundra, but it's only 13 degrees outside. Anyway, I know Lyle from Texas is going, oh, God.
Oh, no, thank you.
13 isn't bad when the wind is not blowing. When the wind blows, it really sucks.
13's bad, Steve.
13
is bad. It's like the 2 times I've been on Finding Bigfoot, for some odd reason, by coincidence, it's been like some of the coldest times, especially we did one in Caddo Lake, East Texas, in which the first day I tried to get to the filming, there was a blizzard and I had to turn around and go back. We filmed the next day. It's a swampy area. It's the place where, if anybody's seen The Creature from Black Lake, the movie from 1976, there's icicles hanging off the cypress trees. And of course, I'm in this crappy coat, and they're like, Blackburn, you never have good gear. I'm like, dude, I live in Texas. I investigate in swamps. I don't need I just simply skip the blizzard that one day it might happen a year. I don't need the fancy coats, so I'm freezing my ass off. It's just funny, the coincidence. But.
Oh, it's funny. I told this story too. I go to Scotland. So what's the weather like here? It's weather. And I did. I arrived there. I'm like, wow, it's kind of chilly. Like a half hour later, it's like, wow, take my coat off. And 20 minutes later, coat's back on. Okay, so Quick Witty wants to know, what are your thoughts on the Sierra Sounds?
I think definitely probably vocalizations from one of these creatures. I mean, the backstory, especially the way that developed, it wasn't necessarily out there Bigfoot research. It's something that they were hearing in the woods and had the wherewithal to record. Whether that's some kind of a language, I don't know. It seems very much like, but I think those are legitimate vocalizations. It's not a hoax or, humans making the noise. So I think those are great. And I always wish we had more of that, to kind of compare and contrast with the Sierra Sounds. But that's really, really good stuff in my opinion.
My good friend now, Robin and I go back many years, probably at least 15, 16 years. So he says, we talked about the cows. He wanted to remind me about basically these big pigs that were ripped out of the creature back in a farm in Saskatchewan, Canada. So, what do you, OT says 13 and you complain, gee, but it's -5 with a -30.
Oh my God, you guys are tough.
Now hold on, 13 is nice. That's why I asked. 13 bad? Now when it gets to -5, that really sucks. That's when
it's all relevant,
Well, -5. Just think about it. 13, you can walk around a little bit. -5, you walk out the door, and your nose immediately dries up because any moisture that's in your nose is just frozen. So figure that one out. You're like,
dude. Years ago, I'm sorry, I'll try to cut this short. Years ago, there was this guy moved to Cave City from Alaska. Okay, I don't remember what his name was. I don't know if he's still here or not, but it was 35 degrees midwinter. We drive by. He's outside, shorts, no shirt, washing his car. 35 degrees.
Oh, heck yeah. That's warm, Chris.
Oh, my God.
It could be, hey, if it's 35 in January, we're doing good.
Oh, yeah.
We're actually, it's above freezing. Hey, we're melting snow. I don't care.
I'm getting tender in my old age, I guess.
Oh, I tell you what. Yeah. Poor Chris. I had to drop the bomb on him like a month ago that, hey, we got 36 inches of snow here. And that was like one of our biggest snows. And, okay. 8 o'clock, all the snow was on 8 o'clock in the morning. All the snow is down here. Here comes the plow. Does my driveway. I clear off my car. I'm good. Yeah. Good, but good God, in Virginia, if a half an inch of snow falls, it's the entire state down.
Oh yeah. Lyle probably knows too. In Texas, I don't think they even invented salt there yet because those guys put sand down, and sometimes that's a good idea. Like on ice, you put sand on it, and it works. It works.
Yeah, I just dread any of that because, they just dump sand everywhere. And, then it melts in about if it ever even ices, typically the next day it's melted. But if you just wait, but they dump everything on the highway.
And all your fender wells are sandblasted.
Well, the other thing, too, is if you hit your brakes on sand, you can slip and slide.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to So Quick Witty has a question. Is there a cover-up coming on? I don't understand. I don't know what recent evidence you've seen, Quick Witty, about any type of cover-up. But I don't think there's any cover-ups going on with Bigfoot.
I don't think so.
Maybe we should do a show on conspiracy theories, Steve. the Bigfoot conspiracy. I can't keep a straight face when we talk about that stuff.
It's like inherent with any of these subjects that are unproven. There's always, it's sort of that always there about cover-ups and conspiracies and stuff. I guess off the gut instinct, I just don't see why, and nor do I see that the government is capable of doing anything very well. So, if it's the government doing it, why and how? They're too busy arguing about other stuff. They're not even running the country, much less trying to cover up Bigfoot. Right.
Truth. Yeah, and unless it's something national security wise, like obviously I understand why they may want to cover up UFOs because there's technology there, and that can be either exploited or used. And that's why they want to keep that under wraps, and they're even starting to trickle that out now. Bigfoot, no, if anything, they're just going to kind of look the other way and go whatever. But I don't think they're actively doing anything that's like we need to cover this up.
There's no Project Blue Book equivalent for Bigfoot that's ever been formed. You know what I mean?
Project Brown Book.
That would be good.
Oh, so I've seen the hidden camera video of Texas officials talking about Sasquatch, and that may be true. And you know what? Even if you got to kind of look at it. If you don't think people are talking about it, they're talking about it. And yeah, if there is a sighting, especially like in a small, hey, you got a couple of guys, rangers out there, and they're like, hey, there's a lot of Bigfoot reports coming out of here. Yeah, we got to kind of play that down because we don't want people running through here with guns. We don't want people running through here. That's a safety issue. That's not a cover up. That's just a safety issue.
Yep.
Look at Fouke, Arkansas. Go back to that. How many guns were in the forest then?
Yeah, I mean, there was more people in the woods with guns hunting the creature than there were people that lived in the town. A huge problem.
But see, here's the wherewithal with that. That was a very local operation. I mean, word of mouth. And hey, those guys probably were pretty handy with guns and had a lot of gun smarts. You do this now with social media, you're going to get people popping shots off at people, things that think are Bigfoot, which comes back to that old Oklahoma law thing. So I don't know, but hey, in the chat, if you guys want us to cover a conspiracy theory, you pick it. We'll go after it. Just comment below on what you want your conspiracy thing. I mean, off the bat, I can think about
there's a bunch. Yeah.
Well, we could talk about Montauk Monster and what's that the basis of the Stranger Things show, that CIA project. I forgot what the name of that was. We could talk about JFK. I'm very well read on JFK. That's a very interesting story. We could talk about, I don't know, who pooped to bed. No, we
I watched something on the Montauk Monster once. It was like a documentary, but I think they need a better one. I think. Of course, I don't think the Montauk Monster. I think was dog, but
either a dog or
a raccoon, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so.
But that island, though, I mean, that I would love to know some history about that and a little, drive around and show stuff. That would be cool. Film stuff here and there.
Okay, yeah, quickly, real quick. Have you known about the Beast of Brushy Creek?
Don't know that one. Where is that located?
I don't even know that one.
Yeah, and I've
heard it bounced around, but I've never really.
I'm thinking Arkansas.
Somebody also asked you if you went to Area X.
Yes, I've been to Area X twice. Mm-hmm.
Good area, a lot of fun, a lot of interesting stuff going on, or was it kind of just, eh?
Well, when I was there, I didn't have a sighting or anything, but I mean, there is constantly stuff going on there, and it's certainly, in my opinion, a very good Bigfoot habitat. To get to Area X, once you get off the blacktop, I mean, you're looking at hour and a half drive down into those mountains, off road. You can barely get to it. It is very remote, and anything could literally be living up there and have its run of the forestry. So I think, and that's in the Ouachita Mountains, and I've had, investigated a lot of sightings there, and I've been to the Ouachitas both in the Arkansas side and the Oklahoma side, and it's certainly if Bigfoot exists in the South, that's one of the hot spots, no doubt about it.
I did a quick Google search for the Beast of Brushy Creek, the Quickwitty, I think it was.
In the Central Texas Hill Country.
It says Central Texas, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say Brushy Creek. Central Texas, to me, is just not habitat for Bigfoot at all. There are some one-off sightings and stuff, but
it's pretty dry there, isn't it, Lyle? Best I can remember.
Yeah, it depends on where it's near. I mean, East Texas, is heavily forest. There's a lot of swamp area. It's not what people think, but Texas is so big. It just depends on what it is. But I don't know that case, and I know most all the heavy hitters of Bigfoot cases or have investigated them. I'm not familiar with that one.
Well, I'm going to have to watch that and see what it's all about. Thank you, Quickwitty. Appreciate that.
OT says he'd like either Bigfoot. Well, there's no conspiracy about Bigfoot, so that's like, or JFK.
That must be pretty recent because the date I found was like November 2020.
It is.
So that's probably a new one that I hadn't caught yet. Yes.
Ooh,
yes.
I'll check it out.
There's another question too. I don't even know if you remember this one. Your thoughts on the Ohio howl. So
it's kind of the icon of Bigfoot vocalizations, I guess. I think it's similar to others that have been heard. The only problem with the vocalizations is, nobody's seeing it come out of the mouth of a Bigfoot. So ultimately, it's like the footprints. Unless you saw the thing making the print, we can't 100% say that's a Bigfoot, but I think it's certainly possible. It's a cool sounding noise. So, it's cool to blast out into the woods or at a campsite at night, even just to spook people out.
Well, I think that was Stan Gordon, if I'm not mistaken, that recorded that.
What's that? The Ohio? No, it wasn't Stan Gordon.
Wasn't Stan? Okay.
No, Stan.
Are you thinking of Stan Courtney?
Stan Courtney. Yes. I believe that's right. Okay.
Yeah, Stan Courtney.
My Google flu is getting weak. I don't want to wear out Google tonight. My brain's not working good, man.
Yeah, you don't want your screen to lock up either. Dave Winter says Paris, Texas has a lot of activity. Now I'll tell you something really strange about Paris, Texas, because I've been there too a few times. I feel that there's some legit activity, and I feel there's a lot of hoaxing going on down there. With the Mike sells videos that, MK Marlin's trying to sell to people that are real. I've been there. I've seen the videos. I'm not impressed. I've seen the scaling that MK did, and it was incorrect. And, not to put shade on him, but, this is all, I don't know what's gotten into him, but, the massacre theory and all that stuff. But anyway, when I went down there was a set of tracks. I knew they weren't real, because at the very end there was two tracks side by side like this. Now that's funny because I'm 5'9", 5'10", somewhere in there, and my feet stand apart like this.
Yeah.
So for something to be standing there like with its feet together and they just end, it's kind of, and the toe, the size of the toes didn't impress me. But I will tell you, in the Paris area, when we were down in those bottoms, which, by the way, went to Falk, Arkansas, if you followed them, we were trying to find a way across this creek. And so we hopped the fence, which was completely private property. And we're like, well, this guy's got like 1,000 acres. Nobody's going to care if we just pop in there and take a walk along the shoreline. So we popped the fence and we're walking up, and all of a sudden here's this 18-inch track or 17-inch track that was there. And you could see where something had walked. But here's this one. It just happened to catch the sand in this particular way. I mean, how? This is private property. Nobody expected anybody to be there. And that's just outside of Paris. So they're out there. But I think there's a element in Paris that likes to play a little chicanery, because I was out there one time, especially around Pat Mays Lake. I think there's a lot of chicanery that goes on there. That's actually the area where Mike Sells had lived. But last time I was out there, which was years ago, there was a track put down, and it was very blatantly a hoax track. So,
yeah, I mean, there's sightings in that area that I think are legit, but yeah, there's some controversy. Some of my best buddies down here have started researching, back in the 90s, into the Texas area. So I've been privy to information regarding some of these things that, but like anything, I mean, I think any Bigfoot research is always an intermix of legitimate sightings and people trying to do their own thing or be famous or add to it or whatever it is. It's sometimes hard to navigate through that and get to the good stuff.
Well, the thing about the whole video is I make mention of that because never once has a particular researcher mentioned that Bigfoot that's supposedly going over the fence leaves notes. Leave notes.
Crayon.
Yeah. So, let's look at the overall body of evidence in the story, and leaving you notes now. In crayon, because they left a piece of paper and a crayon there and draw some pictures on it. So it's just madness.
Yeah.
They should have left a coloring book and a box of Crayolas and see if it would fill in the line, That would be an interesting experiment.
One of those Sasquatch brews that Jason Weaver was on advertising. I would have left. So let's get some real Bigfoot bait. Put a bottle of beer out there. And it's funny because, primates do like fermented stuff because it has an alcohol content. And Jane Goodall found that the chimps liked the rotting apples because they were turning alcohol. They were turning into alcohol. So they were eating those and leaving the new ones for a few days. Yeah. Forward thinking, really.
Most people, it lets you spend a lot of time around chimps. You never know how smart these guys are. I mean, problem solving intelligence. And it's just unbelievable that we could have a Bigfoot out there probably smarter than that.
And OT says, here's what we do with someone as a hoaxer. We send them a totally fake researcher who's partly comedian and all interactions. Make it decent for YouTube video. Well, that sounds kind of cool. You got to understand that most of the hoaxers have issues. There's a psychological issue why they want, and usually it's loneliness or a feeling of abandonment or a feeling of not being fulfilled in their life to make any kind of mark on their life. So knowing that, after doing a lot of psychology, after learning that, I'm a little more compassionate to your average hoaxer and to the ones that are outright bad. Those ones I tend to have a little more wrath. But somebody says they think they see a Bigfoot, and they're obviously telling you a lie. I always tell the story of the guy who did that, who had just been divorced. He was married for 16 years, got divorced, and 6 months later, he's reporting he's seeing a Bigfoot, and then seeing a Bigfoot again 3 months later. It's that need. But anytime, look at the time already, folks.
Well, I just want to mention too, and I'm sorry, Steve, I'm going to hawk your book here a little bit. There's a good section in Steve's last book about the mentality of hoaxers. I really enjoyed it.
So the last one is, I know how is red facts saying. Yeah, we'll talk more on that sometime quickly, I'm sure. But anyway, Lyle, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a fun ride tonight. I hope you had fun.
Definitely, man. Thanks for having me. Good time.
Oh, anytime. And so you're still running monsterbizarro.com?
Well, I've had to. My store was just too busy for me to keep up anymore. So all my books are just solely available on Amazon now at this point. So
got it. And there's a number. I think there's like 8 books out there or something like that.
I've written six books. So,
okay.
But yeah.
I see. One's a video. Never mind. Two's a video.
Right. And then it intermingles with the Small Town Monsters release. But yeah, if you go to lyleblackburn.com, there's a shop link. It'll go straight to my page at Amazon and with all the books therein. And
I know we almost ran in together at a show, but I think you guys had to back out a couple of years ago over in Pennsylvania. But not sure, that's so long ago. But I hope to cross your path real soon. Yeah,
hopefully, if we get back to doing some events and being able to travel at will, because it's been a bit of a. It was great because I spent some time catching up on writing and things like that, and mail orders were quite good this year. I mean, people must be home reading, so I was thankful for that. But yeah, a lot of events and some of my research projects, and a lot of times if I have an event that I'm going to travel to, I'll sideline and do some other stuff to make it, economically better. But yeah, it's hopefully we'll cross paths soon.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Chris, final words of the night.
I want to thank Lyle for coming on. We appreciated having you, Lyle. Always a pleasure. And I would like to thank our lovely, intelligent audience for joining us tonight and all the great questions. You guys are sharp. And if it's the first time watching us on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe, share, ring the bell.
Sharing is caring.
It helps us out in the search algorithm, puts us up there closer to the top, and everybody can find us easier. Thanks.
All right, folks. On behalf of everybody here at Squatch D TV, we want to wish everybody a happy and great week. Be safe, be healthy, God bless, and keep on squatching.
You've been watching Squatch D TV. Join us each week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, for the latest on the Bigfoot mystery. As always, we thank you for being our loyal viewers and encourage all to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Steve Kulls. As always, have a great week. Stay safe. God bless. And keep on squatching.